Here.
Counselor Griego,
Present.
Counselor Vigil,
Here.
Counselor Carson,
Here.
Counselor Hensley.
Here.
All counselors present and a quorum has been declared.
Thank you. Okay. The next thing we have is the agenda approval. Would anyone like to make a motion? And
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as stated.
I'll
Second.
second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, Ms. Martinez, would you take the vote?
Yes, sir. Counselor Hensley,
Here. Or yes.
Counselor Griego,
Yes.
Counselor Vigil,
Yes.
Counselor Carson,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Broyles,
Yes.
Mayor Coleman.
Yes.
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is on our agenda is citizen comments. This is the segment of the agenda to where we allow our citizens to make comments. We do ask that you keep your comments within 3 minutes. If you're still talking at the 3-minute mark, I will ask you kindly to end the conversation at that time. Ms. Martinez, do we have anyone in the queue that has signed up for council comments? I'm sorry, citizen comments?
No, we did not get any comment cards submitted. If anybody is in the queue and does want to speak, they can raise their hand if they wish at this time. Should be a button in the bottom of your screen that says raise hand. And if you're on the telephone, you can dial *9.
Can I ask a question? Are we going to post the agenda on here as we go through it?
Yes.
Okay, just was making sure if I needed to print it real fast.
Okay, I don't see anybody that raised their hand, so.
Okay, since we have no citizen comments, we would move on down to consent calendar A.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar A.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussions?
I just wanted to point out that on sales tax, in May, our sales tax was higher in 2020 than it was in May 2019. So it's nice to see our sales taxes holding.
That is nice. That was pretty awesome. I thought we were going to take a pretty wicked hit, actually.
Yeah, so that's shows that our Alamosa has a pretty strong economic base. So that's good.
Thank you, Councilor Brawls. Thank you, Councilor Carson. Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion that we,
Christina already did.
okay, and we have a second too? Okay, good. No further discussion. Okay, Ms. Martinez, would you take the vote, please?
Yes. Counselor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Carson,
Yes.
Counselor Broyles,
Yes.
Counselor Vigil,
Yes.
Counselor Griego,
Yes.
Counselor Hensley.
Yes.
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may apologize to Councilor Daniel for not addressing her properly earlier. I'm sorry.
No worries. It's all good. It's all good. That's going to bring us on down to the next item on the agenda, a presentation from outside agencies, the LEAD program.
And I believe we have Clarissa Woodworth and I think Carrie Deacon's here too.
And as Holly brings them over, we can find out if they need to share anything from the screen. But this is the quarterly update that we like to have provided to City Council. Additionally, through a lot of work from CRP, we've applied for another grant that they might update council on as well.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hi, Carrie.
Hi everyone.
Did you need to share anything with your screen or are you just talking?
No, I'm just talking. I didn't prepare anything to share.
Okay, perfect.
So I just wanted to say that, you know, with all these changes and everything going on, we have been partnering with the city and law enforcement to try to continue to find ways for us to be able to continue moving forward with our program. And they've been strong partners, and we've always appreciated that about the city and the law enforcement. And so I just want to emphasize that. And so since we've been going, I know I always give an update about our numbers and where we're at with our program. So overall, we hit 96 referrals. I think if we, in our grant, we had written that we would hit 100. I definitely think we would have exceeded that if COVID had not happened. And so we're only 4 short, which isn't bad, but with COVID happening, you know, and with everything that happened with you know, everything shutting down, we did come in at 96, but that's still really, really good. So I think that we did awesome. Out of those 96, we do have 65 that were enrolled. And so when I say that, we get the referrals from law enforcement and those who actually follow through and come back and engage with our case managers and complete our intake process. We actually had 65 who completed all of that and had some engagement at some point with one of our case managers. Specific for Alamosa PD, we've had 41 referrals specific from them. And out of those 41, 35 are actually enrolled. We have hired a new case manager. So I know that we had mentioned prior to everything that we were looking, and so we did hire someone. We hired Richard Martinez, who goes by Poncho. He will be assigned to Alamosa. And so we hired him, and his official start date was April 1st. And so the way we brought him on was very non-traditional. We had to do all training and everything with him online. And so through that process, it was a learning experience for all of us, but I think it was also an advantage for him because since we weren't able to do the more traditional ways of bringing him on, he really had an opportunity to really learn the history of LEAD, how it got here to Colorado, the meaning behind, you know, the kind of work that we do. And so it was really helpful, I think, for him coming on brand new, never have really done this type of work before. He has a school background, so he used to be a teacher. And so he's coming with more of an education background. So when he was able to do this, he was really excited because he's a learning person. He loves learning. So being able to do that was really exciting for him. But it has been very non-traditional way of doing it. Now that we've been able to lax some, we are meeting with some of our participants out in the park. Gail has been going over to the park there in Alamosa with Shanae from La Puente, and actually La Puente has been a really huge partner and collaborative during this whole process. They've helped us do some outreach and engagement with some of our participants when we weren't able to, so that collaborative was huge. Just making sure those participants that we were working with were continued to receive some supports and access to our resources that we were able to provide to them. And so Shanae was amazing. There was other partners through La Puente who were really helpful. But now that they're at the park, Gail's been able to reconnect and re-engage with some of the people that we had lost contact with. So having that opportunity has been really nice. It's been good for our case managers too, to start having options to see their participants. They were missing that connection. So that's been helpful. So our nice weather came at a good time for us to be able to do that. So trying to find creative ways in order to maintain that engagement and that connection with our participants. We've worked with multiple partners. Some hotels have also been willing to work with us in each county to help house them, to give access to their business centers so they can have access to computers to meet with our case managers over Zoom. And so that was really helpful. We have also written a grant. I don't know, Heather, if you've mentioned that at all to City Council.
Just that we applied for a grant, but that you would share more information.
Okay. So I prepared Clarissa to give this spiel about the grant. So I don't know, Clarissa, do you want to speak to that?
I will, and I may have to look at my notes because that preparation was all today in between meetings. It's funny how you write a big grant and then you like put it out of your mind until you get it funded. So I went back and reviewed it. There was an opportunity through the federal agencies, the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, and Justice Assistance. They collaborated to offer this, this grant opportunity that we went in. The fiscal is the city, and it looks very much like a third pathway into LEAD. a lot of programs are finding, and our law enforcement have said that they like being able to help and offer services to different populations. And so we've got the ones that are diverted, and we have some social referrals that are making contact with law enforcement. This is an opportunity to kind of get that population that we're not meeting right now, that are non-arrest, that are needing some of the same types of services. So it's called the Angel Program, and it is it's based on an evidence-based program called, oops, now sorry, all of a sudden I don't know how my video went off. An evidence-based program called Police Assisted Addiction and Recovery Initiative, PARI. And so it's really nice to find another program that wants to do a lot of things that also works with LEAD. So it really fits in tightly. So the budget is about $600,000 for 3 years, and it covers some time for case management, some support from the DA again. And again, we want to work with the same evaluators that we are from the state. And our evaluators, they're just really good partners, and they like working with us. So they actually brought this to us and asked us if we'd be interested in writing this. And I should say us, he went to Carrie. So one of the caveats is you really, when you're working with people, they're going into medical assisted treatment. So they get case management and support, but the goal is treatment in this particular program.
And I just want to, because I know Carrie and Clarissa won't mention this, but they were the ones, so our evaluators brought it to their attention, but they're the ones that brought it to the policy team and said this is probably a grant we should look at, and worked with the team on some ideas. But then I'm not sure how many of you guys have written a federal grant, but oh my gosh, it is crazy. And so Clarissa, Carrie, and Luke deserve a lot of credit for rolling up their sleeves and writing that grant. Holly and Chief provided some of the data and some of the numbers, but really the grant writing was through CRP, and it was a really big deal. And so I just want to take this opportunity to thank you guys as a community partner for that too.
Thanks, Heather. Well, without your guys' support, we wouldn't have been able to make it happen. So thank you guys too.
Yeah.
And so it is a self-referral pathway. So it is for anyone who comes and is expressing an interest to have some supports and connections to resources. I think, oh, Liz, did you, Counselor Hensley?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So I just want to, it sounds like what this is though, which is something I was hoping for, is that they don't then have to have been arrested or have any troubles. It's something where they want to help, but have not been in the system. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And how would they let somebody know that they're interested in this?
They can go in anywhere. And so the way that some of them have been modeled is they can approach like an ambulance and like a first responder of any sorts. It could be a fire. I know in a lot of the bigger areas in cities where they have the, full-time fire stations, they've opened those up for people just to walk in anytime. But also allowing them to do it through the emergency room. So when they're in the emergency room or hospital or, so it's also about us being able, if we get this, we'll be able to do some marketing around, who they can go to ask for those connections.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Yeah, we're excited. We're hoping. We're keeping our fingers crossed. Another thing I was going to mention, I know that a group of us had met with a reporter at the beginning of the year, and he had written a very nice 4-part series article on our program specifically here in the San Luis Valley. It was very nice. And Heather, I don't know if you shared that with everyone or.
Yes, it was great to see that kind of coverage and from another community. They're going to really think Alamosa is quite the place to be. But he was a really nice reporter, and I sent you as a 4-part series. And he did a lot of research, and it was a pretty positive experience.
Yeah, no, and we've gotten a lot of praise too for our collaborations with all of our partners and the strong supports that we do get from the city. And so I know when we speak to our evaluation team, they get contacted quite frequently about the lead programs here in Colorado. And they always mention our program specifically just because of how much support and that we have from our partners. So we always are very grateful for our support from City Council and the departments that we work with.
Okay, we have Councilor Vigil with his hand up. He wanted to ask a question. Carrie,
Thank you, Mayor.
you're welcome.
I just want to echo the words of Councilor Hensley about how grateful we are that this program has just blossomed so much. And thank you for all your work and all the work of our partners. Just a couple questions. You said at the beginning of your presentation that 41 referrals came from the Alamosa PD. How many came from the county sheriff's office?
I would have to look at those specifically, but I could definitely get those numbers to you.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
And just as you look, just for Councilor Vigil's perspective, you're also getting referrals not only from Alamosa County Sheriff's, but also Monte Vista. And is there any other agencies as well?
Not right now. So Monte Vista is the only other agency that has been providing referrals, but we are, and so we had Conejos County trained and ready to go. And then again, COVID happened. And so we put a halt on their referrals until we could get going again. And so we just now re-engaged with Conejos County. So they'll start making referrals here soon too.
Okay, thank
Was
you.
that Monte or Rio Grande County?
Monte Vista Police Department in Rio Grande County, yeah.
Oh, so they're both doing referrals.
Not the Rio Grande Sheriff's Department, just Monte Vista Police Department.
Okay, thank you.
And then when will we know about the grant that you applied for?
Usually the start date is October 1st, and I've seen things come out sometimes in August, and I've also seen them not come out till the day it starts. So I don't know.
We're crossing our fingers.
Yeah.
And the DA, so there's full buy-in to this program with the DA, correct?
Currently, yes, and we do have a position, Scott Dillon, who is our liaison and based in their office.
Yeah,
Okay,
'cause
and then
there's going to be a transition there. Megan is also really supportive of the program. So
okay, with the recent election, with the change at the DA coming up, is there going to be support there still?
I hope
so.
And is there anything that the city council can do to convey that message as well?
A good question. We should think about that. Yeah, we should think about a meeting or something. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vigil. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Clarissa and Carrie. I just wanted to say I really, I've worked on federal grants with both of you, so I do know what, what that's like. But no, I know you guys worked really, really hard, and I'm excited about that. And I'm also excited about how this seems to flow with so many other things that we have. So growing the program and allowing others who aren't necessarily involved in the system yet really fits with the other programs that we've had in response to these opioid needs that our community has. And so I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the connection that you all continue to make with all of those other programs and working with La Puente, working with the other providers in our community, ensuring that people get the services that they need and not just kind of wrapping it all among yourselves and trying to solve everything for everyone. The way you collaborate is really wonderful and really shows truly the commitment and the heart of this work. And I think that that's where people get tired, because it is hard work. You guys are doing such a great job and your team always feels tireless. So thank you for that. And thank you for writing the grant. I can't wait until we hear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Councilor Vigil, your hand is up again. No? Okay. Councilor Daniel? Anyone else? Okay. All right, good. Councilor Daniel, did you want to say something again? Okay. All righty, so Clarissa and Carrie, thank you so very much. I really appreciate everything that you all are doing out there in the community to make a positive difference in so many people's lives. And what I always like to hear, I like to tell you what I hear a lot of actually is people who have participated in the program or working on the program, they always say that you meet them where they are, which is very important. And I'm so glad that you all are doing that, because those 35 people who are part of the program right now, that's 35 opportunities to make a positive change in their lives. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. So do we have any other comments for Clarissa or Carrie? Thank you all so very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that brings us to the next item on our agenda. That is going to be Finance, Resolution number 11, 2020.
Good evening, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am just going to go through this rather quickly. These are just the budget adjustments that have come to light since we did the one in February. And I will read from the council communication because it's a little easier to follow than the resolution itself. It's a little more straightforward. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to stop me. We'll start with the general fund revenues. Some of these I can give you a little background on them as we go. Andy was able to get a weed grant that they'll use for in the Parks Department to try to mitigate some of the weeds we have here in town. As you probably all know, the contract for the SRO we had at TSJC was canceled last December, but we had already done the budget adjustment and the budget. So I just wanted to take that out just to clean up the budget a little bit. This donation came from Ruth Hyde's sister to purchase a bench, and Parks is going to purchase a bench and put it out at the Blanca Vista Park in Ruth's honor. The plan review, the hospital is doing some work, and the reason that we bill them because we have to farm out the work because it's some technical issues in that plan review plan work for the hospital that our staff doesn't have the expertise for, so we have to farm it out. So we bill the hospital and then we pay the plan reviewer. This $25,000 grant, Heather was able to work with Jeff over at CHAPA, and they agreed to put $25,000 towards our downtown Main Street project, hopefully to be able to improve the downtown area outside. So during this pandemic, people will be able to eat out, and the restaurants and other venues will be able to expand their space outside to make social distancing easier. We bill every year for the SID and the gas and electric improvement districts, and occasionally when people sell lots that haven't been improved, or even if they have been improved, if they sell the property, they'll prepay those assessments, and that's what this $57,000 is. So down when I get to the expense part, you'll see where I will use that to pay the loan down, and it'll save the city some interest. Part of the fire crew went to, I believe they went to Denver for some training, but that'll be reimbursed for that. They'll receive reimbursement from the state, I believe, for that training. The PD wanted to spend a little more money for the e-bikes that they purchased than they had in the budget, so they wanted to take $600 from their reserve fund and use it for the e-bikes, so that's what that's for. And then El Pormar generously offered a grant for $10,000, and that we'll use those funds to go to assist with the homeless encampment, building for the fence. Okay, we'll go on to general fund expenses. What happened with this para, and I'm not going to go down each line, but we were under the understanding that para was not going to increase their rates because CML was successful in negotiating that governmental entities are, they're not underfunded in the para fund because they keep those things separate, and governmental entities are not underfunded. And so they weren't going to raise that, but then para also had an option to raise it 0.5%, and so they chose to exercise that option, and we weren't aware of it when we did the budget. So overall, the total impact to the city's whole budget is a little over $11,000. It's not a lot, but in order to be in compliance, I thought it would be best just to go ahead and add it into the budget. So I'm just not going to go down each line, but when you see that additional para, that's what that is for. This moved the 53,470. We had the payment for the golf course clubhouse that we've been paying, as far as I know, since it was built, was being paid out of the Conservation Trust Fund. But then the Conservation Trust Fund is part of Andy's budget, and that kind of plays into what he uses some of that money for recreation not activities, but projects. And so in order to free up some of the money that he's going to be short because he had to cancel so many of his programs, we made the determination it would be best to move that to the general fund. And then we'll keep an eye on that, and as the rec fund comes back, then we could, if council determines that we could move it back over to the recreation fund, we could always do that. And then that 55,212 is the prepayment for the SID. And the reason it's less is because the gas and electric, the city funded, so there's not any interest or loan for that. So that's why I just pay back what's the loan amount, not the gas and electric. The $34,000 is what the things IT put cameras and Wi-Fi and did a lot of work out in around the fairgrounds and the rec department, the Alamosa Family Rec Center, to help the homeless be able to access the things that they do when they are camped here in the river by City Hall, because they use the Cole Park, they charge their phones, they get on the Wi-Fi, and then just because there's so much space out there that's not monitored, they put several cameras up just to make it safer for everyone out there. The $20,000, I know you're well aware that a lot of people worked from home and are still working from home, and that required IT to buy. They had to buy laptops and all of the peripheral stuff that goes with that, and the VPN licenses, and it was quite an expense. So we went ahead and put that in the budget. The $200,000 is for the bridge loan program that the council approved. So far, we have issued $98,000 in loans, and I think we only have 1 or 2 applications for the second round. So I'm not sure we'll use all that $200,000, but just in case we do have some more applicants, so we'll have enough money for that. The $58,000 is from the council. We canceled the revenue, but we also canceled the expense because that officer moved into a regular officer's position that we already had, the FTE we already had budgeted. And then there's the expense for the fire training and the additional cost for the e-bikes. There's the expense for the engineering for SLB Health. That $120,000 is for that Main Street program that I mentioned earlier, where they're going to try to work with CDOT to narrow the street and be able to expand the outdoor use there for pedestrians and businesses. And then the improvements to the homeless encampment that the streets did, that's the expense for the fence and some other additional materials and whatnot that they used for the homeless camp. And that's where Andy will spend the $9,800 for the weed management, and then the $1,750 is to purchase the bench for Ruth. Does anyone have any questions on the general fund? revenue. Christina?
Thank you so much. So I notice a lot of the things say CARES on the sides of them. Did we already, I remember us talking about the funding that will come in the intergovernmental agreement. So is that already in our budget then? And this is just the new cost, or will we need to do another amendment with the CARES funds that's coming in as revenue?
Well, when the revenue, when we for sure get the revenue, then we'll do that budget adjustment.
Okay.
But we're fairly certain from the reading and we're hopeful anyway, that we can use that money to pay for these
Okay.
expenses.
Perfect.
Because these
Thank
are
you,
all
Judy.
things that were, pretty much mandated for us to do. So
Great. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss the revenue somewhere.
no, I haven't put that in yet, just because it's not, it's hopefully a given, but it's not for sure.
Okay.
So Counselor Daniel, so you see the expenses because we've actually expended that. The CARES funding is reimbursement based. So that's why, as Judy indicated, we haven't recorded it yet. So we're still waiting for the contract. It should happen hopefully soon. And we have approximately 250,000 of expenses already that we can submit for reimbursement. And then we can then log that as a budget adjustment in the next one.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments? I don't see any hands raised at this time.
Okay, and we'll go on to the enterprise fund. There's a couple of really good news ones in this revenue. The staff was able to obtain, they wrote grants. One is for $48,000, and that's from Colorado Department of Health. And that's going to go towards building a shed or a barn for the recycled materials, because they're worth more if they don't have rain damage and those kind of things. Plus, it'll keep it from maybe blowing and people complaining about it blowing. And they also were able to get applied for and got a recycling rebate, which is considerably more than, I think last year we only got about 25,000. So this one is quite a bit more. And then the insurance, there was one of the water crew had an accident in the superintendent's truck, and that's just the insurance reimbursement for that, for the repairs for the water truck. Excuse me. We got notice in April that at the end of May, they were going to stop supporting our handheld devices. And about that same time, they started getting sometimes they're kind of wonky on us. So council approved for us to go ahead and purchase those. We have the handheld devices. We're waiting right now on the wands that they actually use to do the reading with. So once they get those, then we'll be able to start using those, which will be really nice. And then there's the 10,000 is the repairs for the superintendent's pickup. The $5,000 is the change for the pay plan for the succession planning in the water and sewer department. And there's 5,000 in the water department and 5,000 in the sewer department that should cover those additional payroll expenses. The $232,000 for water purchase. We had a contract already to purchase this water, and for whatever reason, the person wanted us to go ahead and buy it, and so we did. And so that's what that is, and that'll help. I think that's most of the water that we will need for our augmentation plan. There's the $5,000 for the succession planning. The $73,000 is what staff estimated that it would cost to build the recycling barn. We had $25,000 in the budget in 2019 that we rolled forward for this, and then we'll use the other $48,000 from the grant. And then we had to replace the HVAC at the water treatment plant, and so that's what the $13,500 is for. Does anyone have any questions on the enterprise fund? Okay, CTF fund is just where we moved the payment to the general fund that I discussed earlier. The community rec revenue, there was also a donation for a bench for the riparian park. And then $3,000, the tree board donated $3,000 for Andy to buy trees. And then because we took over we assumed management of the golf course, we're not paying rent to ourselves. So I removed that rental from the community rec. And in the expense side, on the 35,000 for the part-time library salaries, it was just a calculation error on my part, and I didn't catch it when we did the budget, and then Saleha caught it later on. So we need to put that in there for the part-time salaries for the library. And then Saleha wanted to roll forward. She had $2,246 left from that Lalave grant that donation that they gave us last year that she did not spend, and so she wanted to roll that forward. So we rolled that forward for her because she keeps really good track of what she spends with those grants. And then the 1,087 is for the purchase of the bench at the riparian park, and I've seen it's really a nice bench. And then the $3,000 for the trees. So does anyone have any questions on the remainder? Okay. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Judy. Really appreciate you sharing all of this helpful information with us. Before we move on, does anyone have any comments or questions before we move on? No? Okay. All righty. So at this time, I guess I will, okay, I see my screen changed. Counselor Daniel, you would like to make a motion?
Yeah, I was just going to move that we adopt Resolution 11-2020, amending the 2020 budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? Okay. Ms. Martinez, will you please take the vote?
Yes, sir. Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Griego,
Yes.
Counselor Hensley,
Yes.
Counselor Carson,
Yes.
Counselor Behill,
Yes.
Counselor Broyles.
Yes.
I think I'm missing one. Did I miss one? Counselor Hensley. Did I call?
I'll say yes again.
Who did I miss? My video screen's changed.
Did she miss anyone or did we get
Counselor
everybody?
Behill?
Yeah, I already voted yes.
Okay, I think everybody said yes, so the motion carried unanimously.
All right, thank you, Ms. Martinez. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda. Item 1B, overview of the city's financial position.
Hi, Council. Holly, are you going to share that? And Judy's going to review these. So this one's actually two different ones. It's to look at how our financial picture is to date, based on how we thought when COVID began, we could maybe see a 25% reduction. So Judy will kind of review how we're doing year to date as far as revenue. But then the other part of it is a quick overview on what our expenses have been thus far for COVID. And the information we're going to share is what we're going to submit for CARES. So some of it is not technically extra cash, but it is expenses that we would be able to receive CARES funding for. And with that, Judy, did you want to talk? Holly, are you going to be able to click on that, or did you want me to?
Did you want me to do the budget comparison first? Do the
Yes,
okay.
let's start there.
Okay.
Hey, Heather.
Yes.
While she's bringing that up, just on a quick note, I've been reimbursed 100% on every piece of hardware I've bought because of COVID.
Nice.
Adds up, and it's been, it's been not nearly probably what the city bought, but it's been a pretty fair amount and significant, and so they're being pretty good about it actually.
And was that reimbursed from FEMA or for CARES?
I think it was CARES funding. But
okay.
I want to say it was CARES funding, but I'll double check and verify but we got reimbursed 100%. I thought it was going to be partial, and we did get 100% on some stuff. I can touch base with you later on that.
Okay. Judy, is this the screen that you would want?
Yes, yes. So I'm not going to go through line by line, but if you look at the budget detail and you look at the percent remaining, 50% is, because this is through June 30, and it hasn't been totally reconciled to the bank, and that's why you don't have the full financial statements. But the percent remaining at June 30th should be, your target is 50%. So if you see, most of the, or a lot of the revenue is pretty close to where it needs to be. Some of it's not quite, but some of this revenue doesn't always come in
Right away.
as it, in a perfectly organized fashion. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. The only revenue that I see right now that's considerably less than the budget has been the highway users tax. And that's, I think, because gasoline's been, people haven't been driving a lot of it. And I think that might come back now because there's so many, you see so many cars on the road. So, but everything else is actually, in the general fund anyway, is pretty close to budget. It's not better than budget, like the sales tax is a little bit better than budget, and on the 1.2% sales tax, and the general sales tax is a little bit better than budget, but I don't know how, I wouldn't want to be boastful and think those are just going to keep going up and up like they have in the past 3 years, because I think they're probably going to level out. And I feel like if we can come in even at budget, I think we'll be doing really well, because that will mean that we're not 25 or 30% less than we had projected in March, when everybody was singing the doomsday songs. And so we did too. We did what we thought was right when we thought that we were going to be really in worse shape than we are. Plus, we don't know, everything's still so iffy right now.
So Judy, can I just jump in real fast too?
Sure.
On the sales tax, there's a few things that we think have impacted this. First, I think we were very fortunate that we were already under the umbrella of the state, and that the Supreme Court made their decision on the internet sales tax prior to COVID, because I think as people stayed home and were shopping, some of this sales tax performing like it did is probably because we were beginning to see the taxes coming in from internet sales as well. And then, as we discussed when we went into COVID, clearly having City Market, Safeway, and Walmart are things that are somewhat sustaining. I will say, as Judy and I talk about still wanting to be cautious, while there is tourism, and it's kind of jolting to see when you're out there because we were so used to it being quiet, it's not necessarily the same as what it has been in previous years. And the other literature that I'm reading is this concept of people going into debt to get through some of this, and when that debt comes due. So there might be a delay in some of the business impacts or consumer spending into 2021. And so we're still saying we're way better off than we thought. So don't get too much of a mixed message, but we're also saying we're not out of the woods, and there's still some red flags out there to be cautious of as we move through this. If there's a second wave, I'm not sure how many businesses can withstand that. And so there can still be some landmines that could happen as we go forward, but there's definitely, on the sales tax perspective, much better than what we would have anticipated at this point in time. And Judy, I think you're getting ready to head into a different part of the revenue. So
and one moment, if you don't mind too, Heather, Councilor Vigil has had his hand up for a while, so he may have a question he want to ask.
Yeah, so how are we doing with our projections towards that half-cent sales tax towards the roads? Are we going to hit that this year?
If collections remain like they are, we should hit it. Yes.
That's great news. And it's so could we say that if we didn't have COVID, we would have had a pretty banner year, like an awesome year?
Oh yeah.
Not only that, Jan, but I know if you remember, I honestly went through a grieving process for a lot of different reasons, but when we were heading into this and Counselor Boyles was talking about wanting to do something for the downtown, and we were saying, hey, let's get a few months into 2020, make sure we know where golf's going to be. Let's make sure we know, how all these are going to land. But we thought we were probably going to be able to do something significant for the downtown. And so when COVID hit, that was fairly depressing to me, because I think it was projected to take up any of that flexibility to do those types of projects. So yeah, we could have done even more if it wasn't for COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and part of the reason the sales tax has stayed pretty steady, I think, is because when I look at our because I get a report every month from the state that says who pays and how much, and our biggest sales tax collectors, remitters, most of them stayed open. Most of them were essential businesses, hardware, Starbucks. So they stayed open. So we did not take quite as big a hit as we anticipated taking. So that was nice. That's been nice. And because people were hoarding so much in March and April, I mean, they were just buying out the store. So they, those sales were probably higher than they normally would have been. So that's another reason we look pretty good right now on paper. So, and in another positive note, I have not had to take any money out of savings yet, which is, that's nice too. And last month I was able to actually put some in savings. So I'll probably take it out now at the end of the month, because we have a big debt coming up to pay. But anyway, so we've been staying steady with revenues and expenses pretty much so far.
And Judy, before you go on a little bit, I see Councilor Brawls. He has his hand up.
I just wanted to ask Councilor Hensley, with regard to the hotel sales tax, has the sales tax gone down on our hotels?
So by the time we get the tax, it's actually a few months out. So we're at a point where we're still seeing the tax from February and March. Does that make sense? So it's a little bit backed up. From the reports from the hotels, they're all really booked. So we're actually looking really good there. The hotels got hit hard, but it is looking a lot better. But we don't have any of those revenues, and we probably won't for a couple of months. It's really a 2 to 4 month sort of back.
Okay, all right.
How that works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Holly, can you scroll down to the expense? On the expense side, well, city councils, they're usually, so you can see they're mostly on target. So good job, city council. The department heads and the staff have been really mindful about their spending. I mean, they call and they say, oh, we got this big thing, can we do it? And then, we kind of talk about things before they just spend, or if they need to write a big check, they'll let me know, because since I'm not transferring money, I try not to take it out of savings, because that's really hard for me to do. So I try to, sometimes at the end of the month, it gets down there pretty low before we get the sales tax revenue in. So the staff has really been mindful about letting me know if they have a big payment in, so I have time, if I have needed to transfer it out, I can do that, which I've really appreciated. And then they've been really, like I said, they've been really mindful about their spending. That's, most of the things are, they, excuse me, our travel budget, we should have some money left over there, because people haven't really been traveling this year. So we'll see some savings in some of those things. Oh, sorry. Okay, Holly, if you want to I think if you just want to scroll down to the enterprise fund. Does anyone have any questions about the general fund?
Councilor Brawls has his hand up. Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I thought she was going to go over, but the construction use tax, it looks like we had a budget of $78,000 for the year, and we've already are already received what, 68,000?
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of that is I think Mayor Coleman probably knows about that. I think there's quite a few homes and the self-help homes. I think they've been building out there, but there's just been a lot of building going on. And
More than
so,
we projected. That's good.
yeah, that's
Well-
something you don't,
We'll probably have our revenues in that category will probably exceed our budget, won't it?
right.
So that's a good trend.
It's very good. Yeah, because then what the nice part about that is the more homes they build, the more property taxes.
That's right.
So, I mean, and then the more people are in town and the more sales tax. So home building is really it's not really nice to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, so the enterprise fund is really performing pretty well. We're down a little bit in the water service charges, but part of that is because of the conservation and the tiered charges. The way the water goes up over 50,000 gallons, it's more, and over 100,000 gallons, it's more. So people are really mindful about their watering habits now. And I know because I walk a lot at noon and I see that a lot of people have gone to Xeriscape in their front yards. And so that saves a lot of water. Plus a lot of bigger water uses have been closed, the schools, the college, because the college uses a ton of water when those kids are in the dorms. So that's a lot of where the water service charges have gone down. As far as collections go, I looked today and we are about $57,000 in arrears, which I think Heather's going to address that a little later, but for the most part, people have been paying their bills. The people who haven't been paying bills are the usual suspects who don't pay their bills. So not everyone, but when I was looking through the receivables today, that's kind of how it appears. That transfer in, that $200,000 transfer in, we're waiting to see, because that money's transferred in from the enterprise debt fund, because the excess revenues in that fund are available to use for the water distribution system repairs and replacement. But we wanted to make sure that we were going to have enough tax revenue in that fund before I transfer that money in, because I don't want to transfer it down to zero reserve there. So once we're satisfied that there's going to be enough money, then we'll transfer that other $200,000 in. And I have that's where the big payment is the end of the month. It's for the debt service for the wastewater treatment plant. Water department salaries and expenses, they're the same way. They've been really mindful about their spending. They don't buy things unless they, I mean, they're always pretty much that way, but they've been more so, and they call and say, is there money there? Can we get this? And like I said, I just can't say enough about the staff, how good they've been about being careful about their spending. Some of the CIP projects we thought we might, we're kind of holding off a little bit, but some of them need to be done anyway, so we're just gonna do them. So does anyone have any questions on the enterprise fund?
So far, I don't see any hands up.
So I think the second part of this was to look a little bit at the COVID spending. So Holly, I think that's a different attachment if you want to start getting to that.
Okay. The only other fund that I would talk about is the community rec fund. Oh, that's okay. No, it's okay. It's just quick. And they can look at it. They have the printout, but you can see from their revenue that all of their programs are really suffering. But there again, they've been mindful about their spending. The only place that's really bringing in the money as the golf course. So if they can keep that going good, that'll be helpful. But as you can look at that, you can see that their revenues are really down in the Parks Fund. That's part of the reason we moved that payment to the general fund. But
It's really good to hear that the golf is bringing in the money. Sounds good.
yeah, it is good.
Mhm.
It is good. So, and we've heard, I don't know, all I've heard is good things about it. So that's good too. So, okay, and then we can go on to the next one, Holly. Thank you if you want to.
This one, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Now, this report reflects, and we met, Heather and Eric and I met, and we went over trying to decipher exactly what would qualify for the CARES Act reimbursement. And we determined, or mostly Eric, because he's the good reader. Well, Heather's a good reader too, but that if you were spending 51% of your time on COVID-related activities or response, that you should include 100% of your salary for that period. And so the reason it says like city manager, March to April, those 2 months, that's about all Heather did was COVID response for the homelessness and homelessness response, and just keeping the city afloat and keeping everyone calm, and trying to herd the cats in a good way. Emergency response coordinator, that was Dawn, and that's pretty much what all he did in March and April was trying to find a place to get supplies we needed, and trying to get find out what kind of emergency response, and make sure he was working with the county and making sure we had everything in place if things happen. And Kathy did a lot of business outreach, and she still is doing a lot of outreach, but more so now just to get people going again. But March through June, all she did was try to give them support, excuse me, find out what they needed, if we could help them in any way. Jolene, she spent hours in webinars finding out how we needed to do things, what we needed to do, what our response should be if certain things happen. Steve Copley spent hours getting supplies and finding out the best way, learning how to sanitize things and make them safe for everybody in the building, and getting supplies for the Public Works Department, and and that was not an easy task in March, trying to find supplies for people. So that was pretty much 100% of his time in March. So that's where, and then the fringe benefits would be like the para and health insurance and all of those things that are included with those associated with those wages. So that's where that total comes from. Then the librarians spent about 2 weeks doing business outreach. I printed out a list of all the businesses in town, and they each picked part of the list, and they made calls and asked if they needed support, and if they did, what we could do, what could the city do for them. And they spent a lot of time doing that, so that should be a reimbursable expense. And then the next one down is the public works staff. It was mostly streets, but some of the water and sewer department, because they ran a water line out there, worked to build. They cleared off the space, and they built an access road, and they just made it so that the people could actually camp there safely. And then it was determined that they needed a water line out there so they could get this, so they'd have fresh water. And so they made a pad for the porta toilets and for the dumpster, and they worked about 2 weeks out there building that. And so this represents their time and fringe benefits to build the homeless encampment. And then, so that's the total cost is 200, that we've spent so far, $288,000. And this is just a breakdown of the equipment costs for the homeless encampment. And Ray got those rates from the FEMA website. So that's where those came. And then those are the materials and supplies. And then the ongoing, I don't know if we still need 2 porta toilets out there or not, but that's what we have right now. And then the dumpster is about $185 a month. And the reason I put that expense there is that the dumpster actually doesn't cost us anything because we own the dumpster, but the trash in there is going to increase our tipping fees at the landfill. So there is a cost associated with us having the dumpster out there because those tipping fees can add up fairly quickly. And then we'll have electricity out there and the water lines. So those are ongoing expenses that we'll have. And then this summary is just, this is what we'll present also to CARES. And we have the invoices to back up all of these totals. So, and these are our actual expenditures per department through the end of June.
And we don't need to go through these details unless council wants to. So Holly, if you can go back up, sorry. Yeah, we can just, but you know, for example, IT, as Judy mentioned before in the budget adjustment, buying the extra screens or the VPN lines, PPE for some of these, sanitizer in some of these departments, those types of things. Now, we can have Holly scroll down if you want to see what makes up all of these things, but it's actual purchase of materials related to COVID. Is that correct, Judy?
Yes, yeah, it's masks, sanitizing equipment, rubber gloves, those kind of things. Or like a lot of gym stuff is to facilitate people working from home. And then the fire department, he had to buy, oh my goodness, he had to buy like whole suits and all of those kind of things because at that time we didn't know enough about it. So he bought hazmat suits and all kinds of emergency response equipment, and so it's been quite an expensive endeavor.
So is that everything? Are we open for questions now?
I think so.
Okay. Do we have any questions? I don't see any hands up. Councilor Broles. Followed by Councilor Vigil. You're on mute, Councilor Broles. Unmute yourself, Councilor Broles. Unmute yourself, Councilor Broles. Holly, can you unmute him? Ms. Martinez?
Looks like he's trying.
Hold on.
My question is, building an extra 9,000. How does that related to COVID?
What's that now?
The building inspection, it says for $9,000.
Oh, it's he bought. Oh my goodness, he bought gloves. He bought masks. He bought sanitizing equipment. We bought gallons of hand sanitizer. He bought special tanks and aeration sprayers so that they could use them in the parks to spray. You know,
that makes sense. All right, just
yeah, to keep the employees safe. Basically, is what most of it is.
Okay, Councilor Vigil. Thank you, Judy.
Mine's gonna be real quick. Just want to recognize all the department heads and Heather and that for really tightening the belt over the last 3 or 4 months and kind of checking and rechecking all the purchases and that. That's just really good to hear, and I know our citizens will be glad to hear that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vigil. Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say I really appreciate the ability to have these details so fast. I know keeping track of funding like this and the information we need for FEMA, you guys were very prepared. So, to echo what Councilor Vihel said, but really it takes a lot of great groundwork and a great base to be able to track the expenses the way you've tracked the expenses. And if we didn't have good systems in place, that would have been a mess. And so I just want to say thank you guys for being prepared, even though, we weren't really prepared, but like as prepared as we could be for an event like this. And then being able to get the data and to turn it around this quickly, that's a big, big job and big work in all the departments. And I just want to say thank you so much for being able to do that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Daniel. Councilor Griego, and then followed by Councilor Brawls. Your hand's up. Did you mean for your hand to stay up, Councilor Brawls? If not, go ahead, Councilor Griego.
No.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out the fact that I appreciate the people that spoke out for that golf course. I know we had some good discussions about it, and it turned out to be a good deal. And thank you, David. I know David was one of the stronger ones that spoke on it, but stuff like that, people took advantage of they can get out there and outside and instead of being penned up. So it's good to see that panned out really good. Thank you.
Yeah, and the golf course getting a lot of play. I mean, it's a good asset to the city. And it'll continue to pay good dividends, I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, Councilor Griego. Does anyone else have any comments before I say something? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. It's so good to see the costs associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. And what's more important, it's good to see staff work so hard, effectively and efficiently to make sure that we were doing everything that we needed to do at that time. And also we're going to continue to do those things as we move forward. But it's so good to see that you all are working together as a team to minimize the cost as well, but also to report it. And then the other thing I was impressed with, it helps give us like a timeline of all the things that we had to do as a city to not only get prepared, but also to continue to be prepared throughout this pandemic. So just keep up the great work. Thank you. All righty, so that brings us to, do we have anyone who would like to, Heather, do we need to make a motion on this one?
No, this was just an informational topic. I know from several of you, you were interested in how we were doing and then also what we were spending related to COVID. So this was just informational.
Okay, thank you all so very much. Appreciate you and Judy providing this information. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on down the agenda to the next item, which is Human Resource Risk Management, B2. The first reading of ordinance number 17/2020.
Thank you, Mayor. So as council knows, the city manager does not have the authority to just go out and hire people unless those positions are within the approved pay plan. And what we have before you tonight are fairly minor adjustments. The first one is we just forgot to list the golf course cart attendant in there. It's not a new position, it's a seasonal, low hours, but we need to go ahead and get that position put in the pay plan. And obviously, we'll make sure it's in the budget and that revenues are covering it. The other item or two positions we need to add are related to our state approved plan for potential positive for COVID homeless individuals. And so that one position is a site manager and the other position would be a day person. These, we would be reimbursed 75% through FEMA since the plan has been approved by the state. And then the remaining 25% would be through the CARES funding. You probably saw the ad that went out for the site manager. We do need to go ahead and advertise and hire for that, but I want to be clear, we do not have, not that I'm aware of, an individual who has tested positive for COVID. The issue is though, is if we do have someone for example, tomorrow, present with symptoms and test positive, and they're in the hotel, it can take us 2 weeks to onboard somebody. So we need to have that site manager position filled before we actually have a positive test. But obviously that person, if we do not have someone in the hotel, they have to perform functions related to COVID because that's per the state approved plan. So they would be providing assistance to the county health department during that time. And so and we wouldn't hire the day person until we reach about 4 or 5 individuals in the hotel. So with that, I'm available for any questions.
Okay. I don't see any hands raised at this particular time. So would someone like to make a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve the amendment to the 2020 pay ordinance on first reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, I don't see any hands. Ms. Martinez, will you please take the vote?
There, Mayor Coleman,
Yes.
Councilor Griego,
Yes.
Councilor Vigil,
Yes.
Councilor Daniel,
Yes.
Councilor Broyles,
Yes.
Councilor Hensley,
Yes.
Councilor Carson.
Yes.
The motion carried unanimously.
Does this go to a second reading or?
Yes.
All righty. Thank you very much, Ms. Martinez. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, item C, committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? If so, raise your hand so I can recognize you and allow you to do that. Okay. Councilor Griego.
One comment before we move on, and I think Councilor Broyles put that, asked the question, that should be set on first reading and set for a public hearing, shouldn't it? It's a first reading ordinance.
Yes.
So it should be amended and set for a public hearing in our next council meeting.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councilor Griego. Can we amend that motion to reflect that so that we can make sure we have everything recorded properly? So, was it Councilor Daniel?
It was me. Do you need me to redo it? I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
thought the
please.
first reading part covered it. So I move that we approve ordinance 17-2020 on the first reading and set it for a public hearing on August 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as it can be heard.
Second. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have no further discussion. We've already voted on it. Okay, thank you. All right, so do we have, thank you, Councilor Griego, for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate that. Okay, you're welcome. Let's go to committee reports. If you have any committee reports, raise your hand. If not, we're just moving on down to staff announcements. I don't see any hands. Okay, so let's go down to staff announcements.
Okay, so I actually have a few that are a little meatier than normal. So the first one is that given COVID and what's going on right now, our recommendation is not to do the city services fair. It's something that's probably not critical for the community and is probably in the best interest for staff and not to have that. So unless there is significant heartburn, we would recommend not having it. We would be doing it right now. I think a lot of what's a big draw for that is the free hot dogs and free food, which is something we would definitely cut out if we were going to do during this time. So anybody have heartburn? Okay, moving on to the next one is our utility bills. As we were going over the revenue to date, Judy mentioned that we're about 56, around 59,000 of past due amounts that people owe. That's in total, but of that amount, 17,000 was owed prior to COVID. And so what happens is we have what Judy jokingly called our regulars. They know that we don't disconnect during the winter months, and so they pay their bill, and then once we go into winter, they stop paying, and they normally don't make their next payment until they get a disconnect notice. So of those individuals, we had about 17,000 in arrears going into the COVID. And then, as we all know, because of COVID, and it was also a governor's order, we suspended disconnects based on non-payment, and we were going to track that amount. So what we'd like to do is to be able to end that. The governor's order ended June 15th. So we legally could do disconnects. What we would like to do is notify those who are in arrears that the amount they had prior to March, they either need to pay by a certain date, or they need to come in and work out a pay agreement. And then the amount that they incurred during the COVID timeframe, our proposal that we had presented is they would have 12 months to pay that back. And so we can track that differently, but we feel like we need a few months before we get to the next winter to try to get some of this collected on, or else some of our regulars are going to get further and further behind. And as Judy indicated when she looked at that list today, it's a lot of the same people. Is there any, it's nothing council has to vote on, but it's something I wanted to check in with you.
Counselor Daniel. Counselor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So Heather, I just want to say thank you, that I appreciate you're looking at both ends of that, and that you're treating the two timeframes differently. I do think the payment plans and things like that, I think we're just going to have to be as flexible as possible, but recognize that people have to start coming in to pay, especially those ones that were before. But I just wanted to say I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that you and the team have put into trying to balance that with people. So thank you.
Okay.
There's no other questions. I do have a few other things, but
Sure.
those were the two meaty ones that I wanted to make sure and share with council. Then the other is on our business loans. So as Judy mentioned, we did the second round, and we actually have only had one submittal. We've had a few calls. So what we'd like to do is, the deadline was on Monday. We'd like to go ahead and keep it open a little bit longer. The other thing is we had an unanticipated situation. So when we did the first round, we did it to where you couldn't be a business based out of your home. And so I think what most of us were thinking when we had that in there is, not to sound prejudiced, but the Mary Kay or the Tupperware, or, you know, those types of home-based businesses were not something that we probably were eyeing for this type of assistance. However, we do have a lot of our contractors who operate out of their homes, and they actually employ people and are a big part of that economy. And so what we'd like to do, if we do extend the deadline, is to remove that that rule that says they can't be based out of their home, knowing that it would be for those types of businesses that are either service focused or have employees, or those types of things, because that was where we were hearing some concern of things are tightening up for them. But I just wanted to check with council and make sure there's no heartburn with that. Okay. And Holly, are you ready for us to do our reminder? Holly will pull up a screen. So as you remember, last year, after going to CML, that pesky little conference that makes us think of new ideas, we completely redid how you guys are doing your evaluations of direct reports. And so that has come quickly. We've been meeting from a staff perspective, cleaning up our forms to line up with what we discussed with you guys, taking out like the numeric part of it and those types of things. We've also been meeting with Kim, who's going to help facilitate it. And then beginning tomorrow, she will be sending out the 360 evaluations to those people who are identified for each of your 4 reports. And you can see this as a previous council communication. There's some of these timeframes in here. But essentially, Kim will send out the 360. She's doing it through SurveyMonkey. She'll be the one that gets all the information. So Eric, Holly, myself, and the judge won't see any of it or, you know, have anything until it gets shared with council. But Kim will then collect that, and then she will send to council the 360 evaluations. She'll also send each of your direct reports is going to do that bulleted list of what we think we accomplished this year, what we did in regards to our goals, those types of things. You'll get that information. And then you'll also get the evaluation form, but you don't fill it out. And that's one of the big things we were changing is you're not filling it out individually, but you'll get the forms. That way, if you want to think on it and kind of think through some of it. And then on August 12th, we have a special meeting that should already be on your calendar. I think Holly sent those invites out. Each direct report will have 15 minutes to go over that quick bulleted list, answer any questions. Then we leave, and Kim would help you guys have the discussion of starting to fill out that actual evaluation and the feedback and the comments. So we're not, you know, pulling teeth of, hey, you haven't submitted your evaluation yet, or I still need it from you, and one person's compiling it all. You guys are just going to kind of talk through all of that and everything. Kim will take all of that feedback, feed it into the forms, send you a draft. You guys will have the ability to review the drafts, make sure it's accurate. And then you'll have a meeting at the end with each of your direct reports to then deliver that evaluation. So it's starting. So that's what we just wanted to make sure you guys are aware, and that there's no surprises for that. Is there any questions related to that item? Okay. Harry was just going to do a quick update then on First Street.
Liz was wildly waving her hand, Heather.
Oh, who? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I was just going to say, Holly, would you double check? I don't see it on my calendar, and I was just looking at my email. And so it may have been me, and I may have missed it or deleted it. But will you double check it or send me a new invite on that? And then me, for one, I'm really excited about this new facilitator doing this.
Yeah, you didn't accept it, so I'll resend it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm going to miss you, Counselor Hensley.
And so Harry, are we done with the evaluations? Harry, did you want to do a quick update on First Street?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure everyone's quite curious about the status of First Street project. Kind of getting exciting. You know, tomorrow we'll wrap up the phases 1 and 2. We'll be doing the final overlay or the final mat of asphalt. That'll go from Monterey to around the bend on Levita. We'll let that cure for a few days, maybe this weekend or Monday morning. We'll go ahead and open that up. And in the meantime, starting 2 days ago, I guess on Monday, we started phase 3. Phase 3 is west to Bell Avenue. So we've kind of closed that section off. We've left the intersections open until we get Levita open from there west, but we're moving forward. We think that's probably going to take about 6 weeks, somewhere right around the 1st of September is what we're planning on. And that'll be the First Street project for this year. It's been, 3 times the length of what we're normally doing. So, and it's went quite well. Gardner's done a great job. Citizens have been patient with us. So it's been a real successful project so far. A few other things, just the street trust fund, the overlay that we had identified on those projects through the taxpayers that they approved. State Avenue, that little section, we got the overlay completed on that, as well as 14th Street. We have that little area between Alamosa and I believe it's Ross. We got the overlay completed on that. So we've met those promises, and we've also done some chip sealing on 20th Street. So we're trying some different maintenance programs that's going to be funded through this to help prolong the life of some of our streets, and we think it's going to be a tool that we can utilize later on. So that's all I have.
Harry, just real quick, is it too late to make Poncha a cul-de-sac? Just joking.
It's been nice having that kind of quiet at the end of your street, hasn't it been?
Absolutely. But being 3 houses away from all that construction, those guys are getting after it. And so just thank you to you and your staff and everybody for getting that project done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilor Vio. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised. Okay. All right, so is that it for staff announcements, Ms. Brooks? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That brings us down to council comments. Raise your hands and I'll recognize the order. So we'll know we have Councilor Brawls followed by Councilor Vio. So go ahead, Councilor Brawls.
I had a question about watering. Has water consumption gone down for watering lawns in the city, or you said the revenues have gone down?
Yeah, and so, I mean, we can take a look at what the usage has been. Judy, do you know, or did you want me to?
I don't know consumption right offhand, but I can look. I would assume it's gone down since the revenue's gone down, because it's usually tied. It's usually correlated. The more you use, the more we collect. So I would assume that it's gone down.
Do we have a lot of people violating the watering schedule?
Not that I've heard the water guys talking about it. I don't
So
know.
so as a reminder on the water schedule, it's like all our nuisances. If someone wants to call and let us know that it's going on, or if our officers happen to see it. So I can tell you as someone, when I'm walking around the neighborhood, there's people violating it, but the right people aren't seeing it and I'm not calling on them. So I think there's still some of that watering. I do know that Deacon has reached out to some of the institutions because they are not necessarily watering during the right times of the day, but we'll continue to have those discussions with them.
Well, I was just wondering, and I bring it to council, that since, the watering revenues have gone down, and I assume consumption's gone down, should we, at this date, maybe suspend the watering schedule, let people water when they'd like?
Well, and I just would offer as well that there could be more to that water being down, such as the college not being in session for the last semester and some different things like that. So we would be hard pressed to be able to show, I mean, we could look at it month to month, but it more than likely is not based on watering lawns and those types of things. I think it's based on some other items.
Okay.
One other question with the homeless. With the homeless camp out there, have we seen people not being under bridges in Alamosa? Has that been working to help with the homeless wandering around town? Or give me some feedback what you see from the police department.
Well, I can't speak for the police department, but I can tell you what I know. So we're in this strange situation still in regards to COVID is still active. And so our commitment to following the CDC regulations and not breaking up existing camps. So those camps that were existing and they're still along the river, we're still not breaking those up yet. So you're still going to see some of those camps. Now the camps that were on the private property, they've moved off. When we're seeing what we call new camps, we're telling them they can't camp where they're camping. And so that's why it's good that we have the campsite, because we do have that legal option for them to go there. So for new camps that we see popping up, we are breaking those up and telling them they can't be on that property. But we are not breaking up what were those existing camps due to COVID situations. But you can be downtown and you can be at Cole Park and there's still plenty of homeless. I think the other thing we're going to look at is once we need to talk about what is a triggering point, because once COVID, I guess, when they call it contained, or I don't know what that triggering point is, when we will then start breaking up the existing camps that are along the river and those types of things. At the same time, we will probably go back to how we used to do Cole Park, where the Wi-Fi is not on during the day, which will also make a difference for the utilization of that park. The Wi-Fi will be at the campsite if that's a service they're wanting to utilize. But we need to figure out what that triggering point is, and it's been like everything with COVID, trying to look into this murky ball to see the future. It's been very challenging. But the numbers I don't think have gone down. From talking to La Puente, bus staying being up and going has allowed some individuals to leave, to either go back to where they may have friends or family, or where they feel there might be better opportunities. So it is good to have bus staying back up and running to help a little bit for the mobility there as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Vigil, followed by Councilor Hensley, followed by Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So I know that many of the questions that Councilor Broyles just asked also came from a concerned citizen that also called me. So thank you for addressing a lot of those questions. Heather, just one more question to add to that would be if you could give us some data at our next meeting about our high water users like the school district and Adams State, if with these new regulations that we got, if their usage has gone down a little bit. And if we can report back to our constituents, because some are concerned about that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Vigil.
I got one more.
Okay.
Oh, just to make, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. I don't know if you want it at your next council meeting or if you want to wait a little bit, because there's a delay on when they get their bills and then when they might start adjusting their behavior or some different. So we're in July, so maybe the second meeting in August.
Perfect.
Type of thing. Okay.
Perfect. And then just want to comment on, so 2 weeks ago when we had this meeting, we had a discussion about masks and the amount of COVID numbers in our county going up. And I read off some numbers from the previous 2 weeks about how our numbers had been going up. And I think I said 71 new cases in just 2 weeks in Alamosa County. And we all agreed that we have to be careful and social distance and washing our hands and really continuing that kind of stuff. I just want to report, according to the SLV emergency Facebook page, that the number of cases in Alamosa have gone down and have been going down over the last 2 weeks since then. So I think that's important to comment on and talk about. In fact, it says here that we're like on a lower level of what do you say? Lower level of, so the San Luis Valley's 2 week case rate has moved from the high category down to moderately high. So just want to acknowledge that and communicate that to people and continue to keep practicing those safety measures, and those numbers will keep on going down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vigil. Councilor Hensley, followed by Councilor Daniel.
I just wanted to, I know that every day there's something new, there's change. You may think you're going a certain direction and all of a sudden that direction changes and then it changes again. And I am so proud of everybody who works at the city. I'm proud to be part of the city, and that how everybody's doing it with a positive attitude. They're adjusting, they're doing their best to continue to maneuver and change. And I know a lot of departments are super big things that's not the normal stuff or the things that we're used to. So I just wanted to thank everybody for that. And that I know I'm really proud to be part of the city. And then also a side note, I do go to the dog park a lot. And I just have to tell you, it is so nice to have those benches with Ruth Heidi's names on them. It actually makes me feel at peace. And I actually, when I see it, it makes me smile, and it's great to have her memory there. So I just thought I would share that.
Thank you, Counselor Hensley. Counselor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I did also receive the same call that Councilor Vihel and Councilor Broyles heard. And the other thing that came up for this person was, and he's not the only one that's brought this to my attention, are concerns about the amenities at our homeless camp. And so I think it's really important that we all explain why we are putting things out there like Wi-Fi, why we're putting things out there like water, why they have some of the things out there, and that we're working to build some shelters from the sun and things like that. We're not paying for that, but like that there are things going on with that. And it really is because that helps them have that place to stay, because they're using those amenities in our other public spaces. And that's where they're causing challenges, I think, for some of our other community members. So we all need to know that that's why we're putting them out there, not to make it a fun place to camp. Being homeless is not fun. And so I think it is really important for us to recognize and to be able to articulate that as council, as to why that is those things are going out there. The other thing is I have been trying to figure out my sprinkling system since we changed the ordinance, and I figured it out today. So we're not going to see a change in our water bill until the next little bit. But I think it's on now, just the days it needs to be on and the times it needs to be on. But it took me a while to figure that out. So I also think there are some people who know that it needs to be changed, and like every time the sprinkler comes on, they do that head slap that I was doing. And so I think it's still going to take a little bit of time for some of those people to get on board, but also recognizing our bigger institutions. So I really will appreciate the data in mid-August or whenever that can happen. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Daniel. Counselor Hensley? No?
Mayor,
Okay.
can I just, as Counselor Daniel talked about being able to articulate why we're putting what we put out at the homeless campsite, just to give you a little bit more information. So like a bathroom, I feel like should be fairly self-explanatory, that we want it to be clean and sanitary out there. So they're a place to go to the restroom. So that's the porta potties. The trash dumpster, I feel, is, a certain level that you want them to keep it clean. They're actually asking for some rakes and wheelbarrows so they can help maintain it, which I think is a very positive step. So a trash container, I think, is very important, as is potable water. So those three things I would consider like basic human needs type of situation. For those, the electricity is being offered because frankly, they have some individuals, not all the homeless, because I want to be careful. Some individuals have a tendency of breaking into outside outlets or going into buildings that's not the most appropriate in order to use the electricity. And then the same can be said for Wi-Fi. And it was a very minimal cost, a very, very minimal cost, that if it will help prevent some of that behavior that we do see. And we struggle with it at City Hall all the time, as far as them breaking into some of the boxes on the outside. And we were starting to see it at the rodeo grounds as well. And so it's a very minimal investment, but I will say, we are working with La Puente, and there might be grants for maybe some picnic shelters or some benches or a few minor things like that. But I've also shared the message that this isn't going to be the most luxurious, like the nicest. It's not going to be a KOA, because this is not something where we want to serve as a magnet for individuals that are not from here. And so it's a balancing act of, we have homeless who are here either because they're here for other reasons, or they were just here and they need assistance and they need that time frame to then for the next steps and some stuff like that. But we don't need it to be up in Denver, someone saying, hey, there's this great campsite that you can go stay at and you get 2 free meals a day, and and those types of things. And so it is a balancing act. We do hear from the community, why are you investing certain things? It's because of the behavior we've seen and trying to reduce that in some of the other areas. So I just want to make sure you can 100% say that there was certain behaviors going on that this is intended to try to minimize.
Okay, I don't see any other hand. Do we have any more hands up? Sorry about that. We have this light switch just keeps going off on me. Don't see any other hands. All righty, so I'll just wrap everything up and then we'll adjourn the meeting. I want to acknowledge the police department and all of the departments, but the police department over the past couple of months, you all have been dealing with some very intense situations. And I just want you all to know, and I'm quite sure that council and staff feel the same, that we really appreciate the way that you've dealt with those very intense situations over the past couple of months. Keep up the good work, keep your head up. The citizens out here in the community, they do appreciate what you're doing. I had a law enforcement officer tell me the other day here in the city that it seems like the sentiments from people in the community are becoming more positive. He says people are waving at them now when they're driving by instead of doing other things or making other gestures. So when you see them out there, hey, they're going through some stuff, y'all, just wave at them, send them a smile or something like that to give them a little bit of hope to continue through their shift every day. Fire department's been going through, been pretty busy as well, dealing with the drought issues and other emergency situations. So thank you all and all of the first responders in the city of Alamosa for the hard work you're doing. I also want to appreciate the Public Works Department who've been working on projects all throughout the city. First Street is looking really good, and I appreciate all the work that you all are doing on the camps and sites and the other streets that are throughout the city as well. Our finance department and city clerk, I believe you all have opened up now to the public, if I'm not mistaken, to where people can come in. And I know you all have had some concerns, but from looking around here, it looks like staff has done a wonderful job to make sure that the safety of staff is priority and they have the proper items to make sure that their health and safety is well taken care of. The city manager's office with our economic development specialist been doing so much outreach out there. I've been talking with different business owners and they're saying, hey, well, Kathy stopped by here the other day, or Kathy called me the other day, or this is what going on, and letting people know about the funds that are out there. I really appreciate you all doing that as well. And then to the city council, I tell you, we all have taken so many phone calls these past 3 months. And what makes me feel so good is that when I get a phone call, sometimes people tell me, I talked to city council with this person or this city council, and now I'm calling you. I am so glad that you all are answering your phones and taking those calls and addressing those concerns and being present for those people. Each and every one of you have been doing that, and I really appreciate that. So thank you all so very much. And if we don't have any other comments, I will officially adjourn this meeting. Good job, everybody.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you.
Good night.
Mayor.
Bye.
Good night.
See ya.
See ya.
Good night.